Hello, PMS. The true meaning of the phrase today. PMS. Pettits, Marshalls, and Steens. What about them? You're under the Steen clan, my friend. All right, who's playing volleyball today? Who's playing basketball? You playing both? All right. I'm playing volleyball. I am. Ready to sing a couple songs? Say a few Bible verses? Maybe? Don't want to? All right, well, get up anyway. Ha, 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 ha. All right, thy word. That one's for you, bud. Are we ready, Mrs. Pettit? All voices were small, but we're proud, strong. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. When I feel afraid and I think I've lost my way, still you're there right beside me. Nothing will I fear as long as you are near. Please be near me to the end. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. I will not forget your love for me, and yet my heart forever is wandering. Jesus, be my guide and hold me to your side. I will love you to the end. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. It's the light unto my path. That was great. I mean, I saw everybody's mouth moving, even Mrs. Steen. She hardly ever sings. You're right. All right, Bible verse number 1. Why? The first song that you heard ever? Or in this church? Awesome. It's good to always remember that. All right, James 3, verses 1 through 5. Matthew, Joe, we're all going to read, right? All right, guys, love you. Hey. My brethren, let not many of you become teachers, knowing that we shall receive a stricter judgment. For we all stumble in many things. If anyone does not stumble in word, he is a perfect man, able also to bridle the whole body. Indeed, we put bits in horses' mouths that they may obey us, and we turn their whole body. Look also at ships. Although they are so large and are driven by fierce winds, they are turned by a very small rudder wherever the pilot desires. Even so, the tongue is a little member and boasts great things. See how great a forest a little fire kindles? See, the littlest words can cause big problems. I know that's Pastor's favorite line, actually, right? It's, my brethren, let not many of you become teachers, knowing we shall receive a stricter judgment. It's like you say, when you get up there, you think all the pastors are going to be put in a separate room and told the way it was supposed to be. and then spanked.
I do that now.
Hey, all right. Get some clapping going here. Get some pow, 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 pow. Would you be free from your burden of sin? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Would you or evil a victory win? There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Would you be whiter, much whiter than snow? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Sin stains are lost in its life-giving flow. There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, 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 wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, 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 wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb.
Very quiet powers.
Would you do service for Jesus, your King? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Would you live daily his praises to sing? There's wonderful power in the blood. All right, get those lips moving. There's pow, 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 wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is pow, 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 wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Woo. How many powers was that? Throughout the whole song, it was 8. Ha ha ha. There's 4, 2, and 1 is 7. Twice is 14. And then multiply it. Then multiply it times 3 verses. Ooh. It's a lot of power he has, isn't it? All right, Ephesians 1, verses 3 through 6. Ready? And we go. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who has blessed us with every spiritual blessing in the heavenly places in Christ, just as he chose us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and without blame before him in love, having predestined us to adoption as sons by Jesus Christ to himself, according to the good pleasure of his will, to the praise of the glory of his grace, by which he made us accepted in the beloved. So we were predestined, but we had to take the gift, right? He knows what we're going to do, but it's still up to us to accept the gift. As Pastor says time and time again. Everybody accept that gift? I shouldn't see any hands down. What are we doing? I am resolved. I am resolved no longer to linger, charms by the world's delight. Things that are higher, things that are nobler, these have allured my sight. I will hasten to him, hasten so glad and free. Jesus, greatest, highest, I will come to thee. I am resolved to follow the Savior, faithful and true each day. Heed what he saith, do what he willeth, he is the living way. I will hasten to him, hasten so glad and free. Jesus, greatest, highest, I will come to thee. I am resolved to
come friends without
delay. So I don't have that one.
Taught by the Bible, led by the Spirit,
we'll walk the heavenly way. I will hasten to him, hasten so glad and free. Jesus, Jesus, greatest, highest, I will come to thee. Sorry, my sheets only have 4 verses, and I know I did 1, 3, and 5, and I know I was messed up. All right, one more boring song. Ready? I had to throw a boring one in there for you. Lord, I lift your name on high. Lord, I love to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. You came from heaven to earth to show the way. From the earth to the cross, my debt to pay. From the cross to the grave, from the grave to the sky. Lord, I lift your name on high. Get some voices going, this is it. Lord, I lift your name on high. Lord, I love to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. You came from heaven to earth to show the way. From the earth to the cross, my debt to pay. From the cross to the grave, from the grave to the sky. Lord, I lift your name on high. Yeah. Woohoo! How was that? You guys all happy now? All right, Pastor, I got them ready. What you do with them now is up to you.
There we go. Sorry. If you've joined us online, I just asked everybody what a kiwi was, so we're taking a poll. What a kiwi might be. And so far we have a bird. It's a type of bird. I heard a fruit. Fruit in your stomach. Someone from New Zealand. That is actually the manner in which I feel like a kiwi, although my accent certainly betrays me. A kiwi is somebody who lives in New Zealand. And the reason I feel like a kiwi is because I am dressed at least partially like a kiwi. Now, kiwis properly for dress attire would wear long socks with shoes, not flip-flops, so it's not complete. But I only know this. I had a professor who was a missionary to New Zealand, and so we had interesting stories from, what was his name, dear? Do you remember? McAllister, Lauren McAllister, who said the book of Isaiah. It was just weird. So anyway. All right, next question. How many of you know what a noun is? I know school ended for most of you.
It's a
Person,
person, thing, and creature.
thing, and creature. It's close to the way we would normally say it. Titus. A person, place, or thing. A noun is a person, place, or thing. And so we're actually going to spend a little while, probably much of the summer, exploring some nouns in the Bible. So we ready for a grammar lesson? Okay. No, I mean, if you don't want grammar, that's good, because neither do I. I don't have a grammar lesson on tap for you. How's that? I have a geography lesson on tap for you. The first noun that we're going to talk about is actually a place, and it's a place that appears in several points in your Bible, a place called Mount Moriah. How many of you know where Mount Moriah is? Right off the top of your head. No. All right. So we'll eventually get to a map, and you'll find it. Somewhere, and not in outer space. All right, so the first place we're going to go is to the book of Genesis. If you're on a pew Bible, and I would encourage you to be so, you're on page number 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's less pages than powers. It was a sword drill where You didn't need any drilling. You just need the sword. It's a rough crowd in here. Lots and lots of heckling. So Genesis chapter 22, it's on page 11 of your Pew Bibles. If you're not using a Pew Bible, you are kind of on your own. But Genesis is the first book of the Bible. 22 chapters in, shouldn't be that hard to find. So Genesis chapter 2, we run into the first time that this place, what place? Mount Moriah appears in the Bible. And this is a really fascinating story with a guy named Abraham. You guys know Abraham? Who said no? Which class are you in? Who's your Sunday school teacher?
I said no.
Okay, as many of you, your Sunday school teachers are in the room, and some of them that are related to you, you might want to just say yes, even if you don't quite remember, okay? Because otherwise I have to have a teachers meeting and talk to your teachers, because by now everybody should know who Abraham is. No. Mr. Steen's saying no. And of course, I am Mr. Steen's Sunday school teacher, so I guess I am in trouble. All right. So Abraham was this very important person who lived a long, long time ago. Let's push back for about 4,000, 4,500 years ago. So very long time ago in a galaxy not so actually far away. So some of you will get that. So Genesis 22, we're going to jump right into his story. Now, Abraham was kind of an older gentleman at this point, probably in the neighborhood of 113, 115 years old, probably. Maybe as old as about 130 years old. So he was kind of old. Now, people lived a little bit longer, so he was in better health probably than I am. But, this is who we find. Abraham had one son that was his true and only son. He had an older son that was kind of a whole different sort of affair. I'll let your parents straighten that one out for you. But he had one son that was his only son. It was his heir. It was the guy who was going to inherit all of Abraham's money. And I guess I should tell you, Abraham was wealthy, a.k.a. rich, right? And so Isaac was the guy who was going to inherit all of Abraham's money, all of Abraham's property, all of Abraham's servants. He was going to get it all. And so an interesting thing happens when we hit Genesis 22. Now it came to pass after these things that God tested Abraham, and he said to him, Abraham, which is kind of what his friends called him. Now this is a test, right? How many of you like tests? Just the teachers in the room and Luke, who can't read. He's just like, Daddy, I'll raise my hand. Nobody else is. Throw you a bone. So Abraham is here. He's going to be tested by God. So this is kind of a big, important test, right? And he tells him to do something weird in verse 2. He says, now take now your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains which I shall tell you. Okay, now is this bizarre? Okay, this is weird by every standard. Does God ever ask for human sacrifice? Because that's what he just asked for here. No. Does God actually make laws against human sacrifice? The answer is yes, okay? So this is really way, 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 way outside of the box. That God is saying to Abraham, Abraham, I want you to take your son, your only son, your heir, the son of promise, and I want you to go to the land of Moriah and to a mountain that I'll point out to you, and I want you to offer your son as a sacrifice. And Abraham's thinking, this is weird, as truth it was. And so Abraham sets off from where he was, which is in the land of Beersheba, which is over here in the land of Philistia, and he begins to set off. Now he first gathers his supplies, so he gets a couple of servants, and he chops some wood, and he gets some rope, and he grabs a knife, and he gets some fire, because these are all the things you need for a burnt offering, right? You got to kill the sacrifice. After you tie it up, you got to put it on an altar with wood, and you got to light the wood on fire. Burnt offering. So he gets all the supplies together, and he gets his two servants, and he gets a donkey, he carries some of the stuff, and he gets Isaac, and they set off. Now, the journey from Beersheba, where he was living, to the mountains of Moriah was about a 50-mile journey. And so it wasn't even really close. And so it takes them about 3 days to get there. And so about the third day, we find that they're looking, and they're heading to the mountains of Moriah. And all of a sudden, in the distance, Abraham sees the mountain. You say, which mountain? No, you say, which mountain? Right, the mountain on which he was to offer Isaac as a burnt offering. Now, God didn't tell him which mountain. He's over there in the mountains, plural, of Moriah in this region, and God's going to send him up to this mountain. We call it Mount Moriah, which is, just helps us, right? And so he gets there, and in verse 5, he makes this really interesting statement to his servants. He says, "Stay here with the donkey. The lad and I will go yonder and worship, and we will come back to you." Now, what's really interesting about that is Isaac and I, we're going to go up in the mountain, we're going to worship God. And then we will come back. Okay, now if he was going to offer Isaac as a burnt offering, who's not coming back? Isaac. No, I mean, if you kill somebody and then burn their body, they can't walk down the mountain with you. It just doesn't happen. And so Abraham makes this really faith-filled statement to his servants. You stay here. Isaac and I are going to go off. We're going to worship God, and then we are coming back. And in Abraham's mind, he doesn't know how God is going to sort out all of the details. All he does know is that God has already made promises that Isaac was going to be the one to carry on the family line, the family blessing, that Isaac was going to be Abraham's successor. God had already promised this before this test. And so Abraham doesn't know the details. He just knows that somehow Isaac's coming back down the mountain with him, because if God doesn't bring Isaac down the mountain with him, then God's a liar. And can God lie? No, God, that's one thing he can't do. He cannot lie. And so they go up the mountain. Now, they leave the donkey behind, they leave the servants behind, so now they're carrying wood and fire and a knife and some rope. And Isaac starts inventorying all their supplies as they're walking up the mountain, and he's like, "Hey, Dad?" "Yes, son?" "We've got wood for the burnt offering." "Yes, we do." "I see we have rope for the burnt offering. Right now it's bundled around the wood, keeping it together." "Yes, we have wood." "I see you're carrying a knife." "Yes, I have a knife." I see also some fire." "Yes, I have fire." "Dad, we're missing something." "What's that, son?" "I don't know, a lamb, because we usually offer lambs as a burnt sacrifice to God." "Dad, where's the lamb?" Remember that cricket we had up here this morning? That would be helpful right about now. Yeah, I don't know. And you got to imagine the silence was a bit palpable. And here's Abraham going, "Where's the lamb? Where's the lamb? How do I tell him that?" And so Abraham tells him this in verse 8, "God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering." How do you tell your son, "Son, when we get there, I'm going to tie you up, stab you, and burn you"? Because let's just face it, probably Isaac's going to drop the wood and run, and he's a lot younger than Abraham. Probably Abraham isn't catching him. And so he just makes a statement, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. I don't know the details. I know that God does, and he'll take care of this, whatever this is. And so they get up there, and it's interesting. Look at this in verse 9. They came to the place in which God had told him, and Abraham built an altar there and placed the wood in order. And look what he happened to do next. And then he bound Isaac his son and laid him on the altar. You can imagine the conversation. "Dad, you're kind of freaking me out here. This isn't funny." And laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. And so Abraham's got Isaac all laid out there on the wood, ready to go, fire right next to him. And he picks up the knife and he's getting ready. He's like, I don't get it. God's got the bases covered. I don't have to understand. God told me to do it. We're going to go. And he grabs the knife. And all of a sudden, an angel of the Lord cries out, "Abraham, Abraham!" Because that's what his friends call him. And he's like, "Don't kill your son. Abraham's like, ding, okay. Not a problem. I get this. I didn't want to do it. But you made me do it, literally. God made me do this, literally. Verse 13, then Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and there behind him was a ram caught in a thicket by its horns. So Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up for a burnt offering instead of his son. And so there's two distinctives, two unique things that we see happen a lot on Mount Moriah. And the first one is that it is a place of sacrifice. Here we are in Genesis 22. Abraham was being tested, that much is certain. But this was Abraham's sacrifice, that God had called him up there to do a sacrifice, initially his son, and then God, as Abraham had kind of prophesied, provided himself a lamb to be the burnt offering. And Abraham offered him there. And so we see sacrifice being something that happens all the time associated with Mount Moriah. The second thing that we see that is associated with Mount Moriah is substitution. Is that one thing in all of our stories will be substituted for another thing. In this particular case, here's Isaac. He was slated to die. And instead of Isaac being the one that died, it was actually a ram that was sacrificed. And there's a picture of an altar. But the ram was a substitute for Isaac. And so when you run across Mount Moriah in your Bibles, those two distinctives, those two things will always be there. It's a place of sacrifice, and it's a place of substitution. So, do we know where Mount Moriah is? We know it's 50 miles away from Beersheba. Beersheba's in Philistia, so that might help some of you. If you looked on the map, you might have seen closely. But I don't want to tell you where Mount Moriah is just yet, because we want to look at Mount Moriah a couple more times, and as we look at it, you'll find out exactly where it is. It's a place you actually know of. You've never been there, but you know about it, and you've heard about it before. But the one thing you want to remember about Mount Moriah right now is that it is a place of sacrifice, and it is a place of substitution, and it's the place where God substituted a ram for Isaac. So guess what happened? Guess who went back? Abraham and, what's his name? Isaac, thank you. They both went down, just like Abraham said. And then, here's what God said to Abraham. As they're heading back down the mountain in verse 17. Blessing, I will bless you, and multiplying, I will multiply your descendants as the stars of the heaven and as the sand which is on the seashore. In your seed, all the nations of the earth will be blessed because you have obeyed my voice. God said, Abraham, I was already going to bless you. I'm going to multiply that blessing. I was already going to multiply you. I'm going to multiply that multiplication. You're going to have, your descendants are going to be so numerous that if you could count all the sand at the shore, you'd be able to count your descendants. How much sand is at the seashore? A lot. You always bring it home in rather inconvenient places, don't you? And this is what Abraham says to Abraham. Because you have obeyed me, I am going to reward you more and longer than you could possibly imagine. Why? Because he was obedient, even when it didn't make much sense. Didn't make any sense. Because God prohibits human sacrifice. And yet the one time he asked for it, it was a test. And Abraham followed through. He obeyed. And God says, I'm going to bless you, buddy, because you obeyed me even though you didn't understand me. So sometimes, the lesson for you kids is, obey mom and dad even when it doesn't make sense. You will be rewarded. And mom and dad obey God even when it doesn't make sense. That actually happens more often than you don't make sense, probably. But you will be rewarded. Mount Moriah, a place of sacrifice, a place of substitution, a place where God tested Abraham. Abraham succeeded, and God rewarded him because he was obedient. Because obedience is the very best way to not get your butt beat. That's not really how the song goes. It's just how me as a dad sings it. All right. So, prayer request this evening did not go out. Oops. The technical difficulties I sustained this morning continue apace. So we will get those emailed out as soon as I can actually get my computer to see a network. Or Chris will send them out as soon as I sit with him and show him where they are. So we will get that done. Quickly tonight, because we do want to move into the next phase of our evening. Any urgent prayer requests that you did not get on your prayer request sheet this morning, but you would like to have prayed for in these few moments? Matt. Okay.
What are we praying for, Matt?
Wow, Matt, you're just dig a little deeper. That was very nice. Except that part where your dad threw you under the bus. All right. Somebody else. Josh.
And I hope the baby is a boy.
That part is up to God, and it's already been decided by God, although I agree with you, for what it's worth. And I think Mr. Marshall does as well. All right, let's see. Okay, Joe Such to heal. Is he still in the hospital? No. Oh, okay, good. So Joe Such had an accident. Kate.
I have a friend whose name is Janice. She has an 11-year-old daughter, but she just found out she may possibly have terminal cancer.
Oof. Is this the same Janice I know?
No.
Okay.
She's a friend in Texas.
Okay.
She's trying to be a strong point for her daughter and her husband, and she was asking for that.
All right. So pray for Janice, who's got a daughter who may have terminal cancer. She's only 11. That's. Oh, the mother has. The mother or the daughter?
The mother.
Oh.
It's just the point that she has an 11-year-old.
Now I know it.
Okay.
I understand why Pastor was confused.
You know, speak my language.
I pray for Doug soon.
Because I'm getting ready to get beat and we'll need one. Joshua.
That the leader, whatever the stages of the days.
Okay.
Holmberg's in Florida.
Suffering for Jesus. Some of you will remember Pastor Roger, who has been here a while ago. He's my friend. I talk about him. He is moving, and he's been living in Bellingham. Took a church in Randolph where he was the interim pastor, now the permanent senior pastor. He's been commuting for the last 2 years from Bellingham to Randolph on Sundays, and he said today was his last time he has to commute to church. So pray for him as he gets settled in there. Pray for me. He's my friend. I'm going to miss having him close. But pray mostly for he and his family as they kind of re-enter parish ministry after a couple years off. Kristen.
My father-in-law, Derek, was coming back from Milan and tripped over something in the airport. And yesterday he got sent over to the hospital because his leg's giving out on him all of a sudden. So they're just watching in case it's a flesh wound. He told me today he was feeling better, but that doesn't always mean that's, the final. So
Okay.
just pray that God just heals. I'm hoping it's just a deep, deep bruise.
All right. Pray for Derek Marshall. That's Uncle's daddy. So pray that his leg would heal quickly and there's nothing majorly wrong with it. Going once, going twice. All right. Josh, quickly.
Pray for my mom to continue to make good choices and get better.
Okay, pray for Josh's mom to get better and to make good choices.
And use her brain.
All right, so we'll leave it at make good choices. All right. Joshua.
Dan and his family.
Okay. Dan Shabbat and his family. They were here last week. Anything specifically or just generally? Okay, Joshua wants to come back. I will tell you this, kids, as long as we're on this particular topic, let me just say how proud of you as both your pastor for all of you and your dad for many of you, how seriously proud I am of you all. Last week we played host to the Shabbats as our musical guests. At lunch, you managed to pry Dan away from his parents, though they don't really know us from Adam, beyond about the hour and a half that they had met. But you entertained him throughout the day, befriended him, made him one of your own, to the place where, and I heard him say it myself, he asked his dad, "Dad, can we come back here every Sunday night?" This is what you children did, you guys especially. I'm very proud of you that you created an environment, even as kids, where somebody just wanted to come back because not so much they loved the place, but they loved you guys and you loved him. And so I really, as your parent and as your pastor, I'm very proud of you, and I want to say thank you. Matt.
Don't thank me for making me come over. Thank my mom and dad.
No, I understand there was some parental involvement there. It would have been very worrisome had there not been, but yeah, we got it. No, so I just really, seriously, compliments to you guys. Kristen.
Just all the visitors who were bringing Cindy with her to church, like we saw her husband today and her friends, that the gospel will reach them through them today.
Yes, so keep praying for those folks who are. Cindy is unable to drive for, I don't know, another month and a half or so. So she is reliant upon others to bring her. And so it's bad for her on one hand, but it's good for her on another hand that somebody else has to bring her and they get to hear it. So it's a good thing. And she's been just upbeat and positive and real good testimony. So thank God for her. Pray for her continued healing. All right. If you have joined us online and you're still hanging out with us, we're going to bid you adieu and say goodnight. And we're going to go to prayer.